I still believe Bitcoin can hit 250,000 by the end of the year, now that this has put Powell in his place and the Fed will flood the market with dollars. So one thing the Fed could do, in fact, let's pop over here just for a moment. One thing the Fed could do, in addition to dropping their rates, so far it looks like we've gotten a little bit of movement today, is that we have about a 56% guess rate that we'll get a 25 BIP decrease in June, not necessarily the next Fed decision. I mean, the Fed really should be cutting rates like last month. They probably won't cut in May, but it looks almost certain that we'll get a rate cut in June, which will help. And if we look at trueflation, it's really just fallen off a cliff. I mean, if you take a look just at the last month, we had this fall. I mean, really, you can see when Trump took office, inflation index on trueflation, 3%. Now we're down at 1.3. I mean, we've cut that in half, and we're well under the Fed target. So remember, the Fed runs on data that's about 2 months behind. And so their last reading was at about 2.8, which, was right about where it was 2 months ago. So the next Fed meeting, we should start seeing some measurable movements here. And then by the time we get to June, they'll definitely have the ammo that this has slowed down enough to make that a reality. You can see today we're a little bit red. Bitcoin's bounced just a little bit from the 81,300-ish low. And then you can see fear and greed is 25, probably a hell of a lot lower today, frankly, after that big drop. And then crypto fear and greed, 24. If we bounce this out to the last 30 days, we've just been pretty much fearful the whole time. And that's kind of all I had. Really, the only thing I'll leave this to Brett. The only thing I've been watching on Bitcoin is just the fact that, and this isn't an exact science, not the best line ever, but we have had this support. So I'm really hoping that, we're kind of at a crucial thing. We're at this like crossroads here, and it's not looking great, in which Bitcoin has managed to hold this support on the trend line ever since the bear market, started turning around. And then likewise, we've had this overhead resistance since the top that we can't seem to break through. We briefly wicked through, but you can see them almost perfectly. We got rejected right there, and that wick just served as, a fake out. So we're kind of in between this crossroads, and all things being equal, I would assume more down than up. But, hopefully the market will shrug this off and we won't have such a huge drop. The S&P is down 3.5% today. A bunch of main tech stocks, the Mag 7, are down pretty ugly. Things like Apple are not looking great because a lot of their parts and things are made overseas, which means that they're going to get squeezed on margin. So in any case, that's all I've got for you right now. I'm kind of just in wait and see mode because, it's hard to make any decisions when markets are freaking. So I would just say, try to be patient and just kind of ride this one out, and we'll see what happens next. But I'm going to pass this back over to Brett and see what his opinions and ideas are here.
Awesome. Yeah, great stuff. All right, thank you, Mike. And I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen too. And I was just pulling up the FedWatch tool to kind of see what that's showing.
Oh yeah, I meant to pull that up. Good idea.
So, okay, cool. Should have it here. So let me know if you guys can see this. I got controls all over the place, moving around. But the FedWatch tool, yeah. So June, they're 64% that, they'll keep it where it is, right? So, but as you go into July, as you were saying, that probability, or sorry, June, where am I? We're in May, sorry. So 80% they keep it where it is. June, 60%, they sort of start to drop that, is what they're showing. Right, so and then we get into July, 400 to 425, and then even greater chances that it'll start dropping. So it's right around the horizon, and all of that looks good. But as you guys know, I always say, show me the charts, I'll tell you the news, and it's not looking really good here. So and so things can change. Obviously, that M2 money could save the day, but in terms of Arthur Hayes originally saying 70K and nobody wanted to believe it, we've been following the IBIT for some time. Let's take a look at the IBIT here. Normally I watch it on a 4-hour time frame, and you guys know the gaps on the 4-hour, which is where this chart is normally drawn, have been very accurate in kind of predicting the magnet of where things are going to go. So let's jump to the 4-hour just to kind of show you that, but I'll go back to that daily, which is showing what we already had been talking about. There's a large unfilled gap here that from the IBIT from here, 46 to 44, I guess that's about a 5%, 10% drop. And so the corresponding level on Bitcoin could be around 70K. All of this can change in a heartbeat, so it's really hard to use this. However, these gaps have been filling, especially the large ones, and so it's harder to see on this daily, but it's not hard to see this big one. And there's a couple smaller ones down here I don't think we'll get to, but this one here is the concern. So if we were to drop down a little bit more, that would come down this range. Now we've also formed a new gap to the upside. It's weird how these things are. I did cover it in the M3 Active Trader. The cause of these, it's called a fair value gap, and especially on the CME futures that they tend to fill as well. I won't go into that here, but there's a great write-up on that if you want. I'll send you the link.